and welcome to Time of Death. Happy Halloween to all, even though I'm a little early, but it's okay.
It's creeping closer and closer every day.
Yes, spooky season is upon us, people.
Prepare your jack-o'-lantern.
Do you want to introduce us, Ris?
Sure, I'll introduce us. So, Dee and Ris, are two nurses who like to talk true crime with a nursing perspective. We're both nurses with psychiatric and medical background. We like to delve deeply into these spooky cases that have a medical influence to them and just give our feedback. So we're here every Wednesday, and Dee has it this week. So Dee, take the reins and drive us home.
So there was a riddle, if you follow our Instagram, just to give you some kind of inkling on what this case would entail.
Spooky.
So, using those clues.
Oh, spooky.
So, let's get into it.
Yes, tell us.
Because no one guessed. One individual guessed a spoon, and guess what? That was not the answer. Good try. Thanks for playing. So, let's move on. This week is going to be the Cheshire Home Invasion, which is based out of Connecticut, right on the East Coast, which is prime spooky real estate.
Yeah, it's a good area for this time of year.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The foliage and the pumpkins.
Foliage.
I just say words wrong all the time, and it's like foliage. No, it's foliage.
The beautiful foliage.
Okay. Well,
wait, I can't hear us. Okay.
So moving forward, beyond the leaves lies an unfortunate and tragic. So, picture it. July 22nd, 2007. Jennifer and her daughter, Michaela, who's 11 years old, went to their local Stop and Shop to get food for dinner that Michaela was about to cook. While they were in the grocery store, an individual known as Joshua Komisjavarski noticed them, specifically Michaela, and began to discreetly follow them around that Stop and Shop. Initially, he was interested in Michaela, but he also said that they were obviously a very affluent family, and he wanted to use them to get money as well.
Okay.
So he later texted with a friend, and I just want to give some background on this. I can elaborate a little later. Stephen Hayes had met Joshua, and at that time was Stephen. Now, fast forward to 2023, Stephen has since transitioned into Linda. So, I don't want to dead name anyone, so I'm just going to refer to Stephen as Linda from here on out. I just want to be clear at this point of the story, they had not transitioned.
Okay.
So, Linda and Josh were texting, and Linda goes, "I'm chopping at the bit to get started. Need a margarita soon. We still on?" Josh said that he was putting his kid to bed, and Linda replied, "Dude, the horses want to get loose, LOL."
Oh my God.
So they had discussed what their plan was for the Pettit family, and the original plan was to strictly rob them. Find them if they have to, like to restrain them, but they were not going into it to harm them.
Okay.
Which, from those text messages, it's something that it sounds like they were really looking forward to.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the horses want to get loose.
I'm ready to go. It sounds like what it sounds like.
There's like a sinister vibe. So, the next day after Josh had stalked the two of them, both he and Linda came into their house through the basement and found William, the father, asleep on the couch. They had found a baseball bat leaning against the basement stairs they took that and ended up beating William with it. They said that they struck him 4 or 5 times, but he was incapacitated at that point. They ended up binding his wrists and ankles with plastic zip ties and rope. And William later said that he heard them say, "If he moves, put 2 bullets in him." Which obviously contradicts what they said about their plan being not to harm their family.
Yeah, that went out the window quite quickly.
So they went into the daughter's and the mom's room and bound them on their beds. He and Linda tied them by their wrists to their bedpost and then their ankles to the bedpost and placed pillowcases over their head. After restraining them, they began to ransack the house for cash. They found some money. They found a check for like $40,000 and they found like an additional 15 just around the house with cash and valuables. So they went into the day room where they had left the father and dragged him down into the basement where they had entered the house and tied him to a pole down there.
Okay.
So after tying William up, Linda went to the gas station and bought $10 worth of gasoline in 2 cans that they had taken from the Pettit home. Prosecution later argued that this was evidence of premeditation, that clearly they went to the gas station with the idea to end up using that gasoline.
Because why else really would you go, especially after you take the canisters, the gasoline cans, to the gas station during a crime like this?
There's no other reason. So after they came back, Linda took Jennifer to the bank. Linda forced Jennifer to withdraw $15,000. And while Jennifer was at the bank, she told the teller that 2 men were holding her family hostage and threatening to kill them all.
I wonder how she managed to let them know that.
She told them the video surveillance showed that she was able to talk to them.
Oh, thank God.
So the bank manager ended up calling 911 and obviously told the police what was going on. The manager told the dispatcher that Jennifer had indicated that the intruders were being nice and that she believed they only wanted money, which was not the case. So they argue that this may have been why they had a very lackluster approach to the situation.
Oh my goodness.
The Cheshire police decided to kind of step back and assess the situation to set up a vehicle perimeter and not reveal their presence at that time. So while the police is maintaining their perimeter, the 2 intruders are starting to escalate. Joshua, who, keep in mind, had been very attracted to Michaela, who was only 11 years old.
That's so terrible.
He ended up raping her. During her autopsy, the state medical examiner found his semen inside of her body. He actually had photographed the rape on his cell phone as well.
He'd photographed it? Oh, Lord.
Joshua later claimed that he was under the impression that Michaela was like 14 or 16. And, however, the forensic test results had found bleach on Michaela's clothing, which suggested he may have tried to use bleach or some other solution.
To, like, sanitize?
To get rid of the DNA.
Oh, my God.
Later on, their mother, Jennifer, is also raped. However, she was raped by Linda.
Okay.
Who, again, at that time was Stephen. William heard not only his wife's rape, apparently, but his daughter's rape as well. And he, hearing this, yelled up and heard one of the intruders say, "Don't worry, it's going to be over in a couple of minutes." So William took that and he was able to escape from the basement.
Oh my goodness.
But instead of going upstairs to help his family, he went next door to their neighbors and told them what had happened. I thought it's now or never because in my mind at that moment, I thought that they were going to shoot all of us. So he decided to leave his family.
But also, like, they've already overpowered you one time, and you don't know what other weapons they have, and your babies are up there, and your wife is up there. So going to get help, if that's, your instinct. I mean, I've never been in this position, so I can't speak to it, but I mean, he probably thought that was the best way to get them help at the time.
I think that, and I'm not a parent, I think that when you know that your child is being raped and there's the very real threat of them being killed, leaving the situation, albeit trying to get help, I personally don't feel like that's the answer. And I can appreciate how I've never been in this kind of situation. I hope I never am. But I can't even fathom leaving my dog to go get help, never mind children.
Especially when you can hear everything that's going on.
And this is obviously, we want to be sensitive to this. Is a very disturbing situation. And William is still alive. He's actually very active in the politics in Connecticut.
Wow.
So he did survive. Unfortunately, his wife and their daughters did not. But we'll get into that.
Was Haley, the older daughter, sexually assaulted as well?
No.
Okay.
The baby was. And I say baby and she's 11, but she's the baby of the house.
She's a child.
She's a child. And even 17-year-old, you're still a child. You know?
Exactly. And him saying oh, I thought she was 14 or 16. It doesn't matter. You still have raped a child. And it's just so horrific that people can be capable of these kinds of things.
So apparently William left while Jennifer was being raped by Linda. And when Josh came in and told Linda, hey, William escaped, he's not in the basement, Linda then strangled Jennifer. After strangling her, they doused her body in the house.
With the gasoline?
With the gasoline.
Oh, yeah.
Including the daughters who were still alive at that point. All over, just gasoline everywhere. They then set the fire and left. Both Michaela and Haley died of smoke inhalation. Haley actually managed to escape her restraints and run out of her bedroom into the hallway, where she then collapsed and died.
Oh my God. And you know what's so terrible? Is that help was right outside on the perimeter of the house. That's just devastating.
It's so sad. So her body was found right at the top of the stairs. And there was some evidence that some of the injuries, specifically the burns, may have been inflicted while she was still alive. Little Michaela was found in her bedroom. She was still restrained. Her hands were tied. However, her lower half of her body was hanging off the bed. And like Haley, there was some indication that those burns on her body may have been while she was still alive.
Oh my. So they were partially burned alive.
Yeah, they were definitely burned alive, and then the smoke inhalation is what actually killed them. They were in different rooms. I don't know if it would be better or worse if they were in the same room.
So Jennifer was in her room, correct? And then the daughters were in their own separate rooms. Oh my goodness. And
well, I don't know for sure because originally when they came in, everyone was restrained in their own beds. But keep in mind, Jennifer did go out to the bank because William heard Jennifer's rape so vividly. It was downstairs. I just would hate to think about the girls hearing their mom being raped too, or Haley hearing her sister being raped.
Oh, yeah, the parents.
So I hope that, and again, I don't know what's worse, being isolated or being with each other and then knowing for sure what's going on with everyone else.
And seeing all the abuse that your family member is suffering, and you're just incapable of doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
Just so horrific.
So William was so disfigured by the attack that when he eventually made it to his neighbor's house, they did not recognize him.
Mm-hmm.
Joshua and Linda led the scene, and they did so in the family car. Because of the perimeter that the police had established, they were immediately spotted by surveillance, pursued, and arrested just 1 block away after they crashed into a police car. The home invasion itself lasted for about 7 hours. Both Joshua and Linda confessed to the murders, and it was noted during their interrogations that there was a very strong smell of gasoline. Each intruder claimed that the other one was like the mastermind behind this. Joshua actually blamed William, the father, for the murders. And yes. He called William a coward and claimed that he could have saved his family if he wanted to.
Oh my God.
So it's not tragic enough for you to do that to this poor man's family.
Mm-hmm. Let me put the blame on you. Mm-hmm. You know, if you really wanted to stop, all you had to do was tell me to stop.
I know.
Yeah, as if.
So Linda, in 2019, revealed that she was transgender and that she was actually undergoing hormone therapy as part of the gender transition process while she was incarcerated. I guess previously, she was diagnosed with a gender identity disorder, however, never received any kind of treatment for that.
Mm-hmm.
So, Linda was found guilty on 16 out of the 17 counts related to the Cheshire murders in 2010. The jury actually returned with a recommendation for her to be executed. And so Linda was sentenced to death in December 2010. However, the Connecticut Supreme Court vacated the sentence in 2015. So instead of being sentenced to death, she has received a life sentence instead.
Okay.
But because of that interstate corrections compact, she is no longer in Connecticut prison system. She is now in a correctional facility in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And continues to receive her hormone therapy for her gender transition.
Okay.
Now, Joshua, to give you a little bit more backstory, Joshua, who was originally from Torrington, Connecticut, he was the child of 2 teenagers having sex who were not prepared to be parents. So he was adopted, and his adoptive family seemed to be very religious, very unaware of what was going on with him. However, in the early 1990s, Joshua's sister accused him of sexually assaulting her. This was something he was convicted for, and his adopted father later admitted that it was probably true.
Wow.
In 2002, he was arrested for 18 home invasions.
Wow, so this has been a big pattern.
And I thought this was really interesting. Joshua told his attorney that after he robbed the house, he would go into the rooms where the people were sleeping and just listen to them breathe.
That is so creepy.
He really enjoyed the feeling of invading their homes and just violating their sense of security.
And having that power.
He was convicted on all 17 counts related to the Cheshire Home Invasion. And December 2011, the jury also recommended the death penalty for Joshua. The judge sentenced him to death by lethal injection. And again, his sentence was also reduced to a life sentence when the Connecticut Supreme Court vacated their sentence in 2015. So while Joshua was incarcerated, he has attempted to commit suicide a couple of times by hanging himself.
Okay.
He also has sought a retrial due to his attorneys not being provided with police recordings that apparently had been destroyed due to a lightning strike. And no, I'm not making that up. I know. Crazy. However...
Wait. The evidence was destroyed by a lightning strike?
Yes.
When it was in the police custody? That is just freaking...
It was
That's
divine
just
intervention.
Insane.
It was divine intervention because they ended up finding backups, but they wanted to use those recordings to say that the police were inadequate in their response and to raise questions about the credibility of what they were saying. So,
okay.
Was it really a lightning strike? Was it someone ditching the tapes? Was it divine intervention? Who knows? But they did find backup. Joshua tried to also say that he did not receive a fair trial due to where the trial was held. They wanted the trial to be moved from New Haven to Stamford, Connecticut. Joshua said that there was just too much prejudice, people who were just absolutely working against him, that he was not going to be able to have a fair trial there. However, he still has a trial in New Haven, and the appeal was rejected in a 7-0 decision, and they actually took it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they declined to hear his appeal.
Good.
So, how did these two individuals meet, you might wonder?
I am wondering that.
So, both of them had previous offenses. Joshua was convicted for not only sexually assaulting his sister, but the multiple home invasions. And Linda had been incarcerated as well. She was arrested nearly 30 times and spent the majority of their life in jail. They actually originally met in 2006 in the Silliman halfway house. And as you know, a mere year later, they committed this atrocity. I was reading Schlesinger's Sexual Murder, Cathymic and Compulsive Homicides. And I thought it was really interesting because there are really two different types of sexually motivated murders, according to this individual. But a sexual murder is not a clearly defined term in the forensic community. Some people consider any murder in which there's sexual contact as a sexual homicide. However, other people argue that it's when the perpetrator describes an internal feeling of arousal. So maybe they didn't commit a sexual act, but they were aroused during that time.
I guess that makes sense.
The author really emphasizes that it's so important for forensic examiners to look at the whole thing, not just go based off their gut or feelings. Like, yes, that's important, but you need to do this based off of witness statements, collateral history from family, friends, police reports, and autopsy findings before deciding what the intent was.
Exactly, because then you don't have all of your pieces together. You know, if we could look at everything and see a whole picture built upon all the evidence and all the testimony and everything you can get to form your opinion.
And when you have a flawed opinion, that directly impacts getting justice. There's some other implications as well. But basically, it comes down to two different types of sexually motivated murders. The first is catathymic, and that is strictly performed for some kind of catharsis or release, and is fueled by an underlying sexual conflict in which the victim is a threat to the perpetrator's ego, which I thought was so interesting because that describes the rape of Jennifer by Linda. If their gender identity was something that they'd struggle with since they were 16, they may have been threatened by this individual, maybe her being a mother, maybe some feature about her.
Maybe that did play a big role.
Now, Linda claims that Joshua goaded him in to raping Jennifer, Michaela, and Haley's mom.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if that also played into this whole catathymic undertone. Because here you are being challenged by this male. Oh, if you're really a guy, you're going to do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there was definitely some kind of threat posed to his sense of identity.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that that was why that transpired. He goes on to say that the victim may make the perpetrator feel sexually inadequate and that this causes homicidal feelings as well. And after this happens, they have that relief afterwards. Now, there's another type. The second type is compulsive murderers, who I think is Joshua.
Okay.
He and others are driven by an internal, irresistible urge to kill. And this gives them a thrill very similar to sexual gratification. He stalked this young girl. It's like The Hunt.
Mm-hmm.
He stalked this young girl, followed her home, orchestrated this whole invasion in order to have sex with her.
Exactly.
And he had done this even to his own sister.
Yeah, he got the end goal that he was looking for. And then he did all this crap.
So, compulsive murderers are driven by that internal urge to kill. And compulsive murderers, who are also known as serial killers, often do repeat.
Did he murder anyone else to your knowledge?
No, but I think this was the first. I think he
First
would
of
have
a
been a
pattern.
serial killer.
Yeah.
And I think that they would have done these home invasions and the same events would transpire. They would find a young girl that he was attracted to and he would rape her. 'Cause I think money was definitely a motivator. But I think that the main drive behind this was to rape that girl. Interestingly, catathymic murderers typically don't do it again.
Okay.
They're very different than serial killers. The compulsive murderers, they often commit acts of torture and sexual deviancy. This is a method of them controlling their victims, and that control is what they really crave. It gives them the same feelings of like sexual release. And there are indicators, including like attacks on females, animal cruelty, that these should be taken as a way in helping identify potential future sexual murderers.
That's a good resource to have, to have it all laid out there, because people can differ. I mean, motives differ so much from person to person, and having like a background in that knowledge is just a good tool to use.
I do believe there is evil. And, Joshua later claimed that he had been raped and that contributed to his sexual sadism. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure it's true that, hurt people. But this takes it to a different level.
And just because you've been harmed before gives you absolutely no right to do that to other people.
Absolutely.
And it's also that two evil people came together.
Absolutely.
And their paths crossed, and then they just commit these horrible, horrible crimes.
They fed off of each other. The criminal system, I feel, being incarcerated for years and years, yes, you're subjected to a lot of different traumas too. But
yeah, I see what you're saying. And also, there are millions of people who are incarcerated over and over, years and years, and they don't do these horrible crimes or any crimes. You know what I mean? But it's just horrific. I just don't have many words for this case.
I just want to give some background about the victims, because they're the most important part of this whole story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we could talk about Linda and Joshua. I really don't give a crap about them.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to talk about who they were as people, because this, I think, is the most important part of our podcast. So Jennifer was a nurse and the co-director of the health center at Cheshire Academy, which is an exclusive boarding school in Cheshire. She had met William, her husband, at Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh in 1985 as a new oncology nurse while he was a third-year medical student at the University of Pittsburgh. So they married later on that year and had their eldest daughter, Haley. Haley, during the time of the home invasion, had just graduated from Miss Porter's School, which is another exclusive boarding school, where she played varsity, cross-country, basketball, and crew, as well as being an honor roll student. While she was at Miss Porter's, she was elected to the senior leadership position of the Athletic Association. She had won an award for exceptional community service, and she had created a fundraiser for MS following Jennifer being diagnosed with that disease. She captained a team called Haley's Hope.
Oh,
which I thought was so nice.
Yeah.
And it just shows what a wonderful person and how much better this world would be if she was still in it. She was going to attend Dartmouth, and she was going to study medicine. Michaela attended Chase Collegiate School, which is another very, very elite school. After her sister left for college, the plan was for Michaela to take over Haley's Hope, and she was going to rename it Michaela's Miracle.
Oh.
She was an excellent, excellent cook and loved to cook for her family.
Oh, that is just so sweet.
At that time, William was an endocrinologist in Plainville, and he was also the medical director of the Joslin Diabetes Center at Connecticut Central Hospital. So at this point, all three of those women have passed. William is alive. He's remarried. He has a son.
Mm-hmm.
He no longer practices medicine, but he's involved in politics now. And that's who I think the focus really needs to be, is our victims.
Yeah. That was a heavy case, Dee. All right.
I hope I did justice for them.
I really don't have many words for this one. Anyway, let's call it. Have a good night and take it easy. Thank you for a very thoughtful case, a very thought-provoking case, but very, very sad case as well. And you want to call it?
Calling it. The time is 19:58. That's 7:58 for all you non-military, non-medical folks. Thank you for tuning in.
And we will see you next Wednesday.
Yes, hopefully Ris chooses something a little bit more upbeat.
Hope not. Or I hope I do. I don't know yet. I hope I don't pick anything that bad.
Don't choose another baby case.
I won't. All right. Well, we will see you soon. And follow us, like us, subscribe to us. You could leave us a review if you feel inclined.
We only accept reviews that are 5 stars, though. So
Exactly.
Unfortunately, we will not accept anything lower. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Bye.
Bye.